One of the most eagerly awaited, hold on, there we go, that's better. One of the most eagerly awaited range of models since their announcement in 2019, the Hattons Genesis coaches are starting to arrive, with the GWR and departmental coaches leading the batches. I knew immediately from when I saw them that I wanted some, so I pre-ordered them, and when they arrived, my first impression was a very good one. Then I got to the second coach and it was just as good as the first, and then on to the third, and I was a little let down to see a couple of small pieces floating about in the packaging. And then the fourth, and again I was a bit more disappointed as one of the luggage racks was loose inside. And then on to the fifth, and all was restored. So let's have a look at them. The packaging itself is quite compact, which is nice, and it makes a little change from the big boxes that we're starting to see with everything. I'm looking at you, Hornby 9F. And inside the packaging, you have a small instruction sheet telling you how to open up, fit DCC, and also remove the centre wheel set on the 6-wheel variant. Also, there are these extra footboards, which I have to admit, I struggled to work out where exactly they'd fit. And as there's no instruction with them, or screws, I've just kind of left them in the box because I'm not wholly sure. But once out of the packaging, and keeping those loose parts safe, I had a good look all over, and I was genuinely very impressed. The livery, application and printing was astounding. The detailing underneath the chassis was fantastic, and the interiors, dark. The norther in me told me to save money and not bother with lighting, which I deeply regret, as I know there's detail to see, and there will be even more in there once I've fitted the passengers. But after carefully taking apart, I can see there is some detail and is fully painted inside. Once on the layout and running, they run as you'd expect, pretty much flawlessly. Basically no derailments or anything. The one issue that I did have was over a bit of uneven track, and the 6-wheel coach did keep coming off there, as with the centre wheel set there is no up and down movement to accommodate any fluctuations in track. So it just ride on the centre wheel set and then it would come off, which was very annoying, especially since the 4-wheel coaches, which are with it, are such great runners. So I remedied this by removing the centre axle, which instantly improved it as it wasn't lifting the rest of the coach up. And also it isn't too obvious that you've removed the centre axle out of the way. One other big bugbear here is the distance between the buffers. It's not exactly great when it's all pushed together, but it gets even worse when the tension couplers are extended, sort of when it's being pulled along. I can imagine it being an easy fix with some Hunt or KD couplings, which I'm hoping we'll still be able to negotiate corners with, but I'm confident I should be able to do something with it. Now, as these coaches aren't modelled on a specific prototype, just on the principle of how different running companies' coaches looked overall, it's hard to compare them on their authenticity. But if only there was a similar model in both price and in form that I could do a comparison between. How convenient. Hornby made an almost identical range of coaches shortly after Hattons announced their Genesis range. That is such a mind-blowing coincidence and is very helpful for this exact video. So first off, comparing them to each other, the prices. The Hattons coaches have just gone up in price now to £33 without lighting and £40 with lighting, although they did honour the earlier prices for the pre-orders. So if you have got your pre-orders in already, I'd imagine you paid £30 for without lighting and £36 with, which isn't a huge price increase. The Hornby ones, if you shop around, you can get them at all sorts of prices. But if you go to the Hattons website, you can get an unlit one for £33 and a lit one for £39.50. So virtually identical in cost. Although, as I say, you can find the Hornby ones a bit cheaper than that on eBay. I don't really know where to start when comparing these coaches. The Hattons one clearly has a much richer brown, and that instantly makes the coach look a lot better when comparing them to pictures of GWR coach liveries of that era. All of the detail also pops a lot more on the Hattons coach, partly because it's brighter and partly because the top half of the coach is black around the panelling and windows, whereas Hornby have just used their faded brown instead. There's also a lot more lining within the panelling, which is ridiculously fine on the Hattons one, and yeah, there's nothing on the Hornby one. The gold lining on the Hattons one is also really nice and reasonably solid, whereas the Hornby one, it is quite grainy, and on closer inspection it does let itself down quite a bit. Also, the Mornsall wheels fitted to both of them, which was an earlier way to provide passengers with added comfort when the suspensions on the coaches were fairly primitive. The Hattons one has picked out the wood in colour, whereas the Hornby one is just black throughout. Moving on to the actual feel, the Hattons one here feels a lot more substantial and solid. And when you sort of move in the coach around in your hands, the only movement you can really feel is just a couple of hooks moving around, and obviously on the 6-wheel version, the centre axle moving backwards and forwards. The Hornby one, it feels a lot cheaper when holding it. And as I say, when you're moving around lightly, you can feel the chassis moving about in the clips of the body shell, which has to be a little bit loose as you need to remove the body shell to gain access to the battery for the lighting. Now, speaking of lighting, now I know neither of these actually have lighting fitted, so I can't exactly review that. However, I do know about both of their systems, and if you merge them both together, you'd have a perfect system. But on their own, they each have flaws. The Hattons ones are powered by the track, but if you want to switch them off, you need to fit a DCC decoder, which adds to the cost substantially as they require an 18-pin decoder, which will set you back around £20 a time. The Hornby one, on the other hand, if you want to turn those off, just their magnetic wand to switch a reed switch in the roof. Simple and pretty nifty, but it is battery powered, which isn't ideal, as batteries have a tendency to die, and besides, you have a power supply right beneath the model in the track. So a reed switch on some lights in a model powered by the track would be perfect. I have a feeling that's what Hornby do on their LMS Coronation coaches, so why they haven't done that here, I am not sure. So going back to the detailing, there certainly is a lot more on the Hattons one, which is good, as there's a lot of extra detail, but it's bad, as there's lots of extra detail to fall off, as has already been noted. Thankfully there wasn't much, and it can easily be glued back on, but it's disappointing all the same. However, this was not a problem for the Hornby one, as there really isn't that much detail there to fall off. You've got the grab handles on the door, these two tanks underneath, handrail, the brakes, and a couple of things on the buffer beam, and that is it. I daren't try and dissect the Hattons one, as there are so many extra parts, as you can see here. And speaking of extra parts, both of them have separately fitted buffer heads, but neither of them have sprung buffers, which, if I'm honest, I don't really care about, because they don't affect the model in any way. So on the interior, the Hornby one is basic. Bench seats, picked out in a single colour, and as these are based loosely on the Stroudley coaches, the compartments aren't broken up, so you can see all the way through the compartments and the coach. Hattons, on the other hand, is still reasonably basic. It's not amazing, but it does have the luggage racks on the top, so it kind of sets it apart from the Hornby ones, and there are a couple of variations in seat styles and colours throughout. So when I started this comparison, I wasn't trying to make a Hornby bashing fest. However, when comparing Hornby's offering to what Hattons have recently brought out, it is a bit hard to not knock Hornby a little bit. With much less detail, a poor livery application, and a very cheap feel all over, it is also hard not to draw to the conclusion that their offering wasn't rushed through production, hot off the heels of a potential competitor. The term is used pretty loosely there, as I know they're a shop first and a manufacturer second, of a potential competitor's announcement. So in conclusion then, the Hattons coaches are not perfect. They're a bit delicate, the 6-wheel version struggles with uneven track, and the distance between them when coupled is pretty significant. However, are they great models? Yes, absolutely. This can be seen in the fact they've sold out already. The Hornby model, I'm not a fan if you hadn't picked that up. If you can pick them up for about £15 or so, I'd say that's a reasonable price for what you're getting. Especially the Great Western ones. I know that it can be different, deliveries are different on other coaches and they've come up a bit better there. But yeah, at the full price for the Great Western ones, it does seem like a bit of a stretch. But the fact that you can actually still pick them up is perhaps the biggest thing going for them. As yes, the Hattons ones are a little hard to get hold of now, but if you get hold of them, you will not be disappointed. But anyway, for now, here's some videos of them running, so please enjoy. Thank you for watching. This video was not sponsored by Hattons or Hornby, but if you have a model making company, I would happily sell out to promote or criticise your products. Hit me up. And if you don't have a model making business, a subscribe should just about cover the costs of watching this video. So thank you for watching. See you on the flippy flop.